We can start. We'll try to complete that on time, but people may join during the call.
Okay, great. Yeah, then let's do that. So welcome everyone to this session. It's great to be back at Cypher User Group Jaipur. I think last time I presented on Content Hub 1, but today we want to take a look at what's new on XM Cloud Components. And by new, I mean to recap probably the last year since I demoed it, meaning the component builder at SUG in Malaga in 2023. So just do one thing here. Right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sebastian. I'm a technical product marketer at Sitecore. I'm also a father of two lovely kids. I'm a musician and also an engaged community member. And I worked for Sitecore almost 5 years, like in 10 days, it's 5 years. And now I have been around the Sitecore ecosystem for more than 10 years already. Right. So as of today's agenda, I wasn't sure if everyone is familiar with XM Cloud Components, but I would like to quickly demo what XM Cloud Component Builder does. And then we go into all the new stuff that has been added since the last year. And last but not least, you might end up with a bit of confusion and ask yourself how to move forward building components in XM Cloud. So I hope I will be able to clarify that as well at the end. Before we start, I think it's good to handle all the questions at the end of this talk. So you might post them in the chat or just ask them in person. I can see the chat, but I'm focused on the two other screens. So bear in mind that I might not directly see your questions. Sumit said that he's going to take a look at those. And if you're lost with something, if you totally don't understand what I'm talking about, please note that in the chat. Sumit will notify me as you're all muted right now. And then we can clarify that immediately. It doesn't make sense to continue when something's totally unclear. But yeah, let's start. And maybe the first thing I want to know is, I would like to raise a few questions around to understand if we can skip the next part. So you can use the emojis, the thumbs up emoji if your answer is yes, and then the surprise emoji maybe if your answer is no. So the first question is, who knows what XM Cloud Component Builder is? Not sure if I see any emojis, to be honest. Oh, there. Yeah, okay. So few of you know it already. Well, mostly all of you. Then who has seen it in action already? Same game, thumbs up or surprised emojis. Like, have you seen a demo or something like that? Yeah. And then maybe last question, is someone using the XM Cloud Component Builder already? Maybe just, yeah, some of you do. Great. So it seems, well, I haven't seen surprised emojis, but I have not seen everyone actually using or answering. So maybe to be very safe, let's start from scratch. And as we might have a mixed audience here, and let's see what XM Cloud Component Builder is. And I don't spend most of the time on that for sure. We talk about the new stuff. But let's have a short introduction. So in general, the product portfolio of Sitecore has grown in the past years. And beside the platform products, meaning XM and XP, we also offer now a wide range of software as a service products. And I don't want to go into details here, but I want to focus on XM Cloud for now, because we want to talk about the XM Cloud Component Builder, and that's a feature that's uniquely available with XM Cloud. So to have a common understanding on what a component is, and I believe we have that, but just to make that clear, a component is a visual reusable building block that is used to design pages of your website or web shop, and each component has a different purpose and functionality. So sometimes you're just displaying text or images, sometimes you have some call to action or even more sophisticated functionalities or integrations, something like that. So in case of the screenshot we see here, we have several components in place, but let's focus on this text image component here. So what I can do with that component is I can, of course, reuse the UI of the component itself, but I can also select a dedicated data source to it. So very basic understanding, right? And I can also use the same component on a different page and share the same data source, so I can manage the content centrally. So that's my basic understanding of components, and also Sitecore's basic understanding of components, and I don't think it's of any surprise. Now let's talk about the XMCloud Component Builder. XMCloud Components is an in-browser front-end as a service. What you see is what you get component builder, and it adds an option to XMCloud to enable marketers and to take more responsibility in the component creation process. That does not mean that this replaces developers completely, but we will see later what that means for developers. You can work with design atoms or design molecules or other components to create functional UI components from scratch. And you can connect these components to a wide variety of data sources and power them by data flowing in from one or many providers. An XMCloud Components allows you to design style sheets and also design or bundle that into themes. And the great thing is that all components are totally reusable across channels. So you can use the components also outside of your XMCloud managed websites. So yeah, let's actually have a look into components and build a new component. So let me bring up the browser. Here we go. So when you start XMCloud, you land here in this in the sites view, and under tools, you have components. And from here, you can manage your components. So the first thing you usually do is you want to organize your components, because the more components you have, the more it gets crowded, and collections help you bundle your components. So I'm adding now a collection just to bundle all my user group Jaipur examples. Let's call it examples. Right, I saved that collection. And now I add my first component. So my component gets a name. I can also provide a description. I can change the collection, but by default, the collection is selected here, the one I'm creating the component in. So I save that, and I can click here to start editing my component. We start usually with a blank canvas, and in component builder terminology, that's a section. So that's already the first element that we get to know. And maybe as an example, what we want to do, and I've shown that before, but we want to rebuild this component here, this hero component that we find on sitecore.com. So first thing we need then is an element here, which we will make a card. And then we can directly copy it from the site itself. So we will copy all of that. Just do a Control-C and then do a Control-V here. So we can see that the component builder has recognized even the tags that we used on the original component. So it's dividing it into dedicated elements already. So I got an H1 element for the join us at Nashville, and then I got a paragraph element for the text. And then I have here another paragraph element for the link. So what I want to do next is I want to use the background image, and therefore I can go back to the website, and from the sources, I just, that's very narrow. Let's do it like that. I just take the URL. So I cannot host images directly in the component builder, but I can use whatever is available in what is available on the web. So if I have something in a DAM, for example, in a digital asset management, I can use a public link and then use that image here. So for my section, I can configure a background image, and that will be a static image. And I just paste the URL in here, and that doesn't change the image right now. Did I forget something to copy? Let me just double check that. So let me try that again. It's not displaying it. That's a... there we go. So our component looks pretty much like it should be. But of course, the UI is not explicitly like it was before, and therefore we can go into the style section or also directly style stuff from here. So we have some options here to style our component. I've prepared a theme already, which is a theme that bundles basically multiple styles, and I can say, well, I initially presented that on the Psycho User Group Germany, so sorry that I haven't exchanged names here. But you can see if I select the theme that bundles already my styles that I prepared, it looks much closer to the component that we wanted to achieve. Just as a quick example, and yeah, that's already how quick and easy we can create new components. So if I want to make use of that component in Pages, I need to stage the component. And then if I want to display the component on my published website, I also need to publish the component. So we have that kind of workflow here as well. So let me just publish it. I staged it before. And then if I go into Pages and refresh my page, then on the Components tab, let's wait for it to load. There we go. So we see in the SUG Jaipur examples, we have the hero component, and I can easily drag and drop that to my page, and it's being added and looking as we, as expected, basically. So back to slides. Right. So let's talk about data sources then. You can use static content from Component Builder, just like we saw it in the last demo. But you can also use external data sources from any third-party system and pull data via REST or GraphQL APIs. And you can use Content Hub 1 as well as a data source. And of course, you can use XM Cloud as data source. And let's also have a quick look on using XM Cloud as a data source. So back in the Component Builder, let me just go one step back where we have the overview. You can see that there's already a screenshot here that we can easily identify our created components. And I don't have to recreate the whole component. I will just duplicate that and say, this is my hero using data source from XM Cloud. Just giving a name, save it, and edit it. So as I said, this is currently static data, but we want to get data from XM Cloud. So what we can do is we can map every field or every element from our component to an XM Cloud field from a certain template. Now, what we want to do is we go here so we mark the field we want to map, and then we have an option here for the H1, which is the text. And you can see there is currently static text, but we can switch to mapped. And now I get a list of data sources or templates that have been configured to be available in the Component Builder. So the promo is a famous example since years. So let's reuse that and say, out of the promo, I want to use the promo text field to be displayed. And you can see that it's directly changing it. And I haven't selected a dedicated data source, but what the Component Builder does is it picks just the first one it finds just to have some demo text in here. Later on, when we use that component in Pages, we will get asked for a dedicated data source. It's just for visualization purposes. So let's do the same for the paragraph. So we map it and we use the promo text 2. And then here we want to use not a paragraph, but we want to use a button instead. So let's add... we can remove that block, can we? Yes, we can. And add an element and say we want to use a button and we want to place it at the end of the card. And now we have two options. On the one hand, we want to use the label for the button. So we have the promo has a link field somewhere. That's promo icon, promo link, and we are using text. And then going back, we can use the link. So we map it to the actual href of the link, and that completes it. No. Well, we also want to have the background image here coming from XM Cloud. So marking the section, and then on the background image, we can move from the static one to the map one. And here I'm going to use the promo icon source. So again, pulling it from XM Cloud as a sample image, and yeah, complete all of that. So I'm staging and publishing my component. And if I go back into Pages and refresh it, we will see the new component appearing next to the other one. Okay, here we are. So let's drag and drop this component as well. Maybe, yeah, add it just above the other one. And you can see I'm getting asked for a data source. So let me just select one that's maintained under the page. So I take the already pre-created promo left, assign that, and yeah, here's my new component. I'm seeing the promo text. I'm seeing the promo text 2. I have the button labeled, and I have my yeah, my background image here placed as well. So works well. Yeah, let's go back to the slides. Now, this was a short introduction to what the component builder is about, and this is all pretty much documented and shown in various YouTube channels, such as Discover Sitecore. There are already blog posts. I think Robert Hawk does a good job on these, but there are plenty of more. So if you're missing some of the basic functionalities of the component builder, just check out those videos, and hopefully they help you. Now, we're here to learn what's new, right? And let's do that now. So last year at SUG Malaga, I ended my presentation with a roadmap, and this time I thought about let's just start with the same and check what has been achieved. So to improve the developer experience in the product, it was planned to allow developers to also code components with a so-called bring your own components feature. Another thing that was promised basically is to have preview functionality. And then last but not least, for the developer experience, a React SDK was also planned. Now, feature-wise, the data source were meant to be kept in sync with the data providers and not only fetched once. So currently, when you are configuring a data source, you can fetch the data once and then yeah, build your component based on that data. But if the data changes in the content management system, then it doesn't get automatically updated in the component builder. So it was planned to change that. And then components are currently rendered client-side. So the idea was to also provide an option to render it server-side as well. And last but not least here, it was planned to offer the ability to provide custom CSS. So to style your components beyond what you can do in the no-code version of the styled section of the component builder. So let's start with something easy. To preview components. And when you are in the component builder, you can click on the inspect button or drop down at the top. And important is that you toggle the last option stating hide hidden items. Let's quickly do that. And then you can see that the label changed from inspect to preview. So that's already the preview mode, and the component builder handles everything in the background to make sure that the view or the display of the component is as close to what you will see in your website as possible. Yeah, that's it, as simple as it gets. Now let's come to a more interesting topic, the bring your own components feature, or short BYOC. And I just saw that Robert Hawk presented on BYOC already here at the Sitecore User Group Jaipur. So I hope this is not too much of a repetition. but yeah, let me just move on. So nothing is usually better than a demo. So what I will want to do is I want to build a video text component, something simple, and that will have a headline, obviously, and then it uses the YouTube ID on a single line text field to display the video. And then last but not least, we have a little description text here. So something very, very simple. And let's go to the demo. So I have here, I hope it's big enough. I have here a solution that's based on the foundation head. So that's the starter kit for XM Cloud using Next.js. And what I want to do is I want to create a new component, as I mentioned. So this video text teaser. And as of any components I create in XM Cloud, may it be headless SXA with JSS or bring your own code, we can use the Sidecar CLI for that, or the JSS CLI. So I can navigate into my app folder, meaning I'm navigating in my terminal into the source and then SXA starter folder. You can see that I'm here and I'm currently working on the main branch. So I don't need a feature branch for that demo here. And I start typing JSS to use the JSS CLI. And there is a command available that's JSS scaffold. You can see that already in my history here. And I want to create a component that's called video text SUG Jaipur. And you can see I'm not creating it in the components folder, which would be the default, but I'm creating it outside in the BYOC folder that comes with the foundation head. Now the reason is that JSS is indexing all the components, all the JSS components, and it doesn't need to do that for any component that's not a regular JSS component. So it doesn't need to do that for those BYOC components, or it doesn't need to do that for anything that you're using, like a React component that you're using but not offering to your clients. So so I'm placing that in a dedicated folder, and I'm using the parameter BYOC just to use the template for that particular BYOC component. And when I execute that, that scaffolds me a new component. So in a few seconds, that should be done. So as you can see, I have now my new video text SUG Jaipur component here. And yeah, maybe having like, that's not what I want, right? It's just a sample component that works. So I have a title field here, and I have some columns count field here as a number. And then I have a little component that just displays something. And then here at the register component method, I can define the fields that are going to be displayed in pages so I can maintain the content later on. So this is the registration of the component. I don't need any items and for registering the component. So I don't have the rendering item anymore. And this is also my content modeling. So I don't need a template anymore, right? So let's make that the actual video text component. So what I would do now is, and I have a little cheat sheet from where I copy, sorry for that. But my field, as I mentioned in the beginning, will have different fields. So it will have a headline, which is a string, a YouTube ID as a string, and a text as a string. So very, very simple example. Now I need, of course, some, I need, of course, something to output. So let me just exchange that. Let me solve those. What's happening here? Let me quickly fix those import issues. Import, quick fix, add import. There's no import available, but that's coming from Chakra. So I'm using Chakra UI here and importing text. There we go. Box is to be imported as well. Okay, and next. It's not imported from. Oh, it should be imported from Chakra. No? Too many boxes. Let me just take this out to solve that. There we go. And one more. Well, no. Okay, so let's have a quick look on what's happening here. So I'm outputting, I'm using Chakra React components. So I'm doing an output of an H2 heading and passing my props, which I get from here, right? So they are passed in here, and I'm passing the headline from my properties. The other thing I'm doing is I'm using the iframe for the YouTube embed, and then I'm passing the YouTube ID here to the URL. And last thing I do here is on the text, which is a p tag at the end, I'm passing the text field. Now, one thing I haven't done yet is the content modeling. So in the register component method here, I need to add the fields that I want to use. And let me also quickly get that from my cheat sheet. So, right. So now I should be without any errors. So I have, well, my component obviously has a name. So that's the video text BYOC, and let's rename that to video text. So Jaipur. And it should be displayed with the same name. Right, so that's the title we see later on in the list of components and pages. We can group our components. So I want to have that under the group of SUG Jaipur. So that's the sections we see in pages, how our components are sorted into different groups. And now I have the data model and also the way how it's being displayed. So we have the headline field, as mentioned. The title of it will be headline, and then there's a description of the field. I think it's written on top to state, please fill in the headline. Same we have for the YouTube ID. So we have a YouTube ID as a string, and again, please use the YouTube ID, which you get from the parameter v and blah blah blah. And we have the text with the same. Now, with the headline, we also want to use a UI placeholder, just as an example. So there is in the headline field, we see already some pre-written text which vanishes once I put the cursor in and start typing. But it helps people understand what to write there. And then another thing I did here is I'm using a UI widget for my text field. So usually everything would be displayed as a single line text, which is a default, but I'm saying that the text, where I expect maybe more content to be, that this should use the UI widget of a text area. Now, all of that is based on, or let me save that for now. Let me deploy that also, or let me first stage that and then commit and push, say, Jaipur, and then we can talk on because the deployment process takes a while. So commit and push. Right. All of that is based on a certain library, and let me bring that up as well. So it's all based on the UI schema. So if you are going to that website where you can see the UI schema being documented, you can see what options you have with titles, description, even class names. So everything you can pass to the certain fields that you are defining in the register component method. Also to mention Robert Hock again, he probably showed that to you, but just to say, he has a good blog post on great UI for your Sitecore XM Cloud BYOC components, and here he's explaining also like bit by bit what has an effect on what basically. And here you can see that there is a single line text, but you can also use select fields such as drop downs and stuff like that. So there are plenty of options. Not everything is covered. We will talk about that, but a lot. So what I did was I created the component. Let's just go back. I created the component. I merged that into main, and that should usually trigger my deployment process. So if I'm opening XM Cloud Deploy from the Cloud Portal, I should see a deployment going on. So let me just navigate to my project and then my environment, which is called dev. So we have a deployment going on. That's the one just started today, a few minutes ago. And the build has passed, so it's currently deploying already. And we can see the logs here. So you might have seen that already, but just saying. So we give that some time, going back to slides, and then coming back and see our component in action. So, right. So there are a few things to keep in mind, and well, the BYOC way to implement components is very simple. It takes less time to implement, definitely, less time to onboard new developers because they don't need to necessarily know Sitecore or XM Cloud. However, it does not support a few things that you need to know. So it does not support inline editing, and we will see that once the component is deployed. But you can still edit the content at the sidebar. So it's a side inline editing, but not directly inline editing. A lot of field types are supported. However, some basic ones are not. And rich text, for example, or image are not supported at the moment. So if you want to work with images, you need to solve that with some single line text pasting in the URL of the image, just like we've seen it with the component builder components. There are also some limitations with the multi-site user experience. For example, the component builder cannot be limited to certain pages or even sites. So the component builder is provisioned for a project. And if you have the XM Cloud architecture or structure in mind, usually you start with an organization, which is your account with the SaaS products of Sitecore. And then if you provision something with XM Cloud, you start with a project, which is usually connected to a source code repository. And then you have your environments within the project, and each environment can have obviously multiple sites. Now, just to repeat that, the component builder application is provisioned on project level. So you will see the same components available for all your environments within the same project, just for you to know. Coming to another topic. Yeah, let's talk about custom styles then. Custom styles can be provided, and it can be provided on the element level. So when you remember the first demo I did, everything I add to my canvas or to my section is basically an element, or this is what we call element in component builder. So there are text elements like the H1 we've seen or the paragraph. There are block elements like the block itself or the section or the card, and there are inline elements such as buttons or labels. And you can go into the details of each of those elements, and then on the custom CSS tab, you can provide, yeah, obviously in an editor, custom CSS. So in my case, I've chosen a card here, and I just provided the background color pink. I mean, I could have done that directly in the style section of the component builder, obviously, but just to show that it works and you can easily see an effect. Yeah, that the card is now displayed in pink. Next one. Yeah, another thing similar to the CSS is that you can now use custom fonts. And yeah, in the beginning you were only able to use Google fonts, and of course many of our clients use their own custom fonts. So yeah, here it is. What you can do is when defining your fonts in the styles area, you can either configure a CSS file that defines the font faces, and you can go on the button in the top right corner, fetch remote CSS file, put the URL there, and then it fetches your fonts, or it displays your fonts, and you can choose them and select them. Another option to do it is to define your font face directly in this editor. So what you can do is you can use obviously local fonts, which doesn't make much sense, even though I used that here as an example. Local fonts from the machines of your users, or the better way is to use web fonts that are hosted somewhere, so you load them from your CDN, for example. Right. Yeah, let's talk about data sources and keeping them in sync when they are coming from a third-party vendor. Until now, we had the limitation that you can only fetch data once and then manually refetch it again whenever you feel like there's an update that you want to get for your component. So of course, that has never applied for data sources in XM Cloud. So when you change something in XM Cloud, obviously that's then also directly affects your component builder component. But now you can also, or now Content Hub 1 got a native integration with Component Builder, so you can simply configure a delivery API key from your Content Hub 1 instance. And let's go back one more time, and you can configure that in the settings of your Component Builder. So if you scroll down, you find an entry for Content Hub 1, and there you can place your delivery API key. Now, when you do that, you get access to all content models coming from Content Hub 1, and then you can assign that to your component. Same way as we did that for the XM Cloud data sources. Right. Let's check if the deployment is actually done, and it looks like. So let's see if in Pages we have now a new component. Loading. I'm not sure if something's wrong with my internet connection. I hope you can hear me well. So I don't see the component here. Why not? Still loading. Default collection. Not in here. That's not ideal. Not sure if I did something wrong with that component, to be honest. But yeah, I have a similar component created, so that should be. Let me check. XM Cloud system forms. That's not that. I don't see any BYOC component. That's interesting. Let me just reload it and see. Okay, seems I don't see the newly created one, but I see the video text BY. So yeah. So I'm not 100% sure why my component was not published here. But I can show you the same component that has been added. So if I drag and drop the video text component, it's the same code. Oh, doesn't. Oh, there we go. So you see, well, there's a component and it contains already something, and I can't inline edit something here, but I can go to the where is it? A configuration here on the side, and I can provide a headline. So this is SUG Jaipur, and then I have some lorem ipsum text here, and then I can provide a YouTube ID. Oh, not sure what this video is about. Let's see. So I click on update, and that hopefully updates my component. Here we are. So we see the headline here, we see the text here, and of course I could have provided more text. And then the video is loaded here from YouTube, basically. So that's the component. As I said, it's not inline editing, but it's very close to inline editing, so I can provide some text here. Great. Yeah, let's come back to slides. So I'm sorry for my component that I just created that it doesn't show up here. I don't know why. But anyway, yeah. So we've seen now most of the new features. So let's summarize what we got and what we haven't got. So to improve the developer experience of the product, we can now also use the bring your own code feature or bring your own component feature. So that's supported. We have a preview functionality, but I didn't see the React SDK, and it hasn't been released yet. So I talked to the product team and asked where we are with that React SDK, and they have been working on that. It's not finalized yet, so therefore it's not released. Yeah, so we need to wait for this feature. Now, feature-wise, we can have at least Content Hub 1 data sources in sync. Of course, also XM Cloud data sources, and the Content Hub 1 data sources stay in sync as long as we use the native integration via the API key. Now, the components are not yet rendered server-side. It's still client-side. Also there, the answer from the product team was that they have worked on that. It's not in final state, so we have to wait a bit. And we can use custom CSS per each element, so that works. In addition to that, we've seen custom fonts working, and then also, I want to list forms here. I mean, forms is a dedicated application. However, it's made available on pages using XM Cloud components. Not going into too much details here because forms can be a whole presentation of its own, but I wanted to list it here as it's connected to the XM Cloud component builder. Now, in the beginning, I told you that you might be confused after this presentation because it seems like it looks all pretty cool, but also has some limitations here and there. So your question might be how to move forward building components in XM Cloud. And that's a valid question. And at SUGCon Europe this year in Dublin, Christian Hahn and I presented on exactly that topic. So we did a component rock-off, meaning we evaluated all the options that XM Cloud currently offers to build components. And what we did was we analyzed and compared use cases per persona, and then checked how either of the solutions, meaning the component builder as a no-code option, the bring your own component feature, or the traditional way using headless SXA and JSS, are solving those use cases. Now, just a summary and the major points that I think make sense to consider here. In general, the component builder is the only no-code option that we have, and it's great for marketers and designers to build components. You can serve different viewports with adaptive designs. You can use custom styles and custom fonts that we've seen. Also, most data source scenarios are supported. However, the component builder and BYC just don't play well with partial designs. So if you're using partial designs in the sense where you want to have a relative path to your data source, that's not going to work with any of the component builder components. Yeah, a bit more of that. The component builder as well as BYOC also don't support placeholder restrictions. I mentioned that. And we can't limit these components per site, not even per environment. They're there for all the environments of that project. Using XM Cloud data sources enables multilingual support, so that's great for all of them. However, BYOC lacks support for some crucial field types, just to mention that again, with a rich text and image fields. We checked the performance for all of those solutions, and they all do well. Also, personalization works very same for all of the ways building components. However, only headless SXA supports the personalization on compatible renderings. That doesn't work with component builder components and doesn't also work with BYOC components. The component builder components, so the no-code one lacks support for accessibility, for example, alt text on images. So that's something to consider. And there's no inline editing in pages for the component builder components. So that's directly inline edited in the component builder. But for BYOC, we've seen that you can edit these on the sidebar. So not directly inline, but very close. So summarizing, when to use what? So the component builder is great for no-code components, no question on that. And when using that, or when your marketers want to use that, please check on your requirements and if that matches with the current feature set that we provide. And I've prepared this list before on those slides before for you, so that should help you making decisions. For most components, it's still recommend to go with headless SXA or JSS components, and that's what you will also see, or what you're also currently seeing in the Accelerate recipes that we provide on the developer portal. In most projects in general, I see that work is divided between, or when working on XM Cloud, between application developers and XM Cloud specialists, or we call them backend developers, so that the backend developer or XM Cloud specialist is creating content models and component registrations, and then the application developer goes and builds out the head application for using the desired front-end framework. There are also just to advertise that a little bit, there are 2 videos on exactly that way going forward building with headless SXA. So just check out the Discover Sitecore YouTube channel. So I don't have a roadmap for you, but I have a little outlook. Yeah, we've seen the simplified component registration process with BYOC, and honestly I like that very much. But we've also seen that only headless SXA and JSS are solving all the requirements. So the good news is, and Liz shared that at the SUGCon in Europe this year, and I believe she also shared that at the SUGCon in India a few weeks back. So the product team is working on connecting the best of both worlds, meaning the features of headless SXA, but then also the component registration process of BYOC, so that we have a simplified developer experience with a rich feature set. And yeah, that concludes my presentation. I hope there was not too much repetition for you, and I might have left you with some questions. So yeah, feel free to ask them in the chat, or I'm not sure if you are granted to have your microphones opened. Yeah, let's check if there are some questions.
If you raise your hand, you are any question, or you can mention the chat window. I'll unmute you.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't look like. Oh, there is a question. Roland. So maybe you need
Just
to
a
get
minute,
your
let me unmute.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's working. Yeah. The mic will be enabled.
Yes. Cool. Thank you so much. Of course, data sources, I was playing around with it, and of course, the first thing I tried was, hey, what about I point to Order Cloud just for fun?
Mhm.
And of course, if I do that, then I have to make sure that there will be no authentication. I have to use like a key, so it's the same. I'm thinking like if I wanted to use data sources that require the specific user that logs into your site to be authenticated to that external data source. If you know what I mean, like if you log into, say, let's keep Order Cloud, so you can see some products, I can see some other products. So depending on who's logging into our site, that's powered by XM Cloud.
Yeah, I don't think that that's working. So the only thing you can do is when you're using the data source option in Component Builder, you can pass anything through the headers, but mostly static data. So for example, an API key that works, but I don't think that you can dynamically use the login data from any user. No.
That was also what I found. I was just trying to think like, hey, that could be a really cool thing, like to build a bunch of components for Order Cloud that you just can drag and drop in, right? So we've done something like that, but then it was we had stuff outside that has, so it get a little too custom to my taste, but yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, you should be able to do that with BYOC or then headless SXA component.
Yep.
But not with the builder components, no.
Cool. Thank you.
Great. So yeah, if there are no more questions, I hope it hasn't been too boring for you, or maybe everything's clear. That's also fine. So then, yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I hope this was valuable, like 50 minutes spent. And yeah, see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian, for the great presentation at this group, and your expertise and clear expectations has enhanced our understanding for this topic. And thank you once again for sharing your knowledge and taking the time to present to our group.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having
me. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks, Sebastian.
For joining.